I didn't plan to kiss a stranger that day. I was just trying to help someone who looked like he was dying. But that one unexpected kiss changed my life forever. Because the man I saved, he wasn't just anybody. He was one of the richest men in the country. Before I share this unbelievable story, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Because sometimes the most unexpected moments become the biggest blessings in disguise. Now, let me take you back to the day everything changed. It was just another regular morning, one of those days where nothing feels special, just the usual rhythm of life humming in the background. I was walking to work, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, half reading a text, half listening to a podcast I wasn't really paying attention to. The air was crisp, not too cold, not too warm. The kind of morning that quietly passes you by without asking for your attention. I took my usual shortcut through the park, the one lined with benches and old trees that always seem to whisper stories if you stop long enough to listen. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. He was standing near one of the benches, just standing. Then, like someone flipped a switch, he dropped, not stumbled, not sat, dropped, like his legs gave out all at once. People saw it happen. I know they did. A jogger lasitota, a sebeseget, egi ido seb nofelki altot, es nehanian chak, altak ot, megfagiva. Everyone seemed to wait for someone else to step forward. My heart jumped into my throat. I didn't think. I ran. He was lying there, his skin pale, lips tinged blue. I knelt down beside him, my hands trembling as I checked for a pulse. Nothing. I remember how quiet everything got in that moment, like the world paused. Somewhere deep in my mind, my CPR training kicked in. I tilted his head back, opened his airway, and started mouth to mouth. No hesitation, no second guessing, just instinct, just hope. I pressed my lips to his, breathing for him, praying each breath would reach him. It wasn't about romance. It wasn't dramatic. It was just real, raw. A kiss meant to save a life and unknowingly change mine forever. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but it felt like hours. As soon as I heard the sirens, I stepped back, suddenly aware of how many people were watching. I could feel their eyes on me, the silent stares, the quiet murmurs. I looked down at my hands, still shaking, and then at him. He was breathing now, faint but steady. One of the medics asked me what happened, and I stumbled through a short answer. I wasn't even sure I made sense. I just knew I had done something people don't usually do, something that didn't feel brave. It felt awkward, terrifying, and honestly, kind of embarrassing. They lifted him onto a stretcher. His eyes fluttered open just for a second, and he looked at me. There was something in that look, confusion, fear, maybe even gratitude. But it was so quick, I couldn't tell for sure. He couldn't speak, and I didn't know what else to do. I gave a quick nod, picked up my bag, and walked away. I didn't even wait for a thank you. It wasn't about that. I just wanted to disappear. All day, I replayed the moment over and over in my head. Did I do it right? What if I'd done something wrong? What if he didn't make it? My thoughts were spinning so fast I couldn't focus on work. I kept checking the news, thinking maybe something would come up. Nothing. No updates, no name, no mention of what had happened in the park. I didn't sleep well that night or the next. Then, 2 days later, I saw it. A short article online, local news. Good Samaritan saves man in park incident. It was vague, no names, but they mentioned the exact location and time. There was even a blurry screenshot from a nearby traffic camera, and right there, in the corner, was me. My stomach flipped. I scrolled through the comments. Most people were praising the act, saying things like faith in humanity restored or thank God someone stepped in. But then, of course, there were others. Why was she even near him? Probably staged. She just wanted attention. The internet never knows how to leave a good thing alone. I didn't want to be part of a headline. I didn't want to be that girl who kissed a stranger in the park. I just wanted to go back to my quiet little life. So I kept my head down, turned off notifications, avoided talking about it, even to my best friend. But deep down, a question kept nagging me. Who was he? Not just his name, but what kind of man just collapses like that in the middle of a park? Was he sick? Did he have a condition? Was he okay now? I knew I'd probably never find out. That part of the story was likely over. At least that's what I thought. Until he came back, and everything I assumed unraveled. It was a slow Wednesday at work, the kind where time drags and your brain runs on autopilot. I was at the front counter, organizing some receipts and trying not to fall asleep standing up. The shop I worked at wasn't fancy, just a cozy little bookstore cafe tucked between a laundromat and a dental office. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just calm, quiet routine. Then the bell above the door chimed. I looked up like I always did, ready to smile and greet a customer with the usual, "Hi, welcome in." But the words caught in my throat. It was him, the man from the park, standing right there in front of me, very much alive, and, well, way more put together than the last time I saw him. He was wearing this dark, tailored coat, hair slicked back neatly, shoes that probably cost more than my entire rent. But it wasn't the expensive clothes that caught my attention. It was his face. He looked right at me, like he already knew I'd be there. For a moment, we just stared at each other. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure he could hear it. He gave a small smile and walked over, calm and confident, like we were old friends. "You saved my life," he said. No hello, no small talk, just that, soft and direct. I blinked, completely thrown off. "You? Remember that?" He chuckled, nodding. Hard to forget something like that. I didn't know what to say. I mumbled something like, "I'm just glad you're okay," and nervously wiped my hands on my apron. He looked around the shop for a moment, then back at me. "I wanted to thank you, in person." He reached into his coat and pulled out a business card, sleek, black, with gold lettering. I took it without thinking and glanced at the name. I didn't recognize it, but the title underneath said something like founder and CEO of a tech company I had heard of, one that shows up in headlines, apps, stock news. My eyes widened. "Wait, you're that guy?" He smiled again, a little sheepishly this time. "Yeah, but I don't usually lead with that." I tried to keep my cool, but inside I was spiraling. This man, who I literally gave CPR to on a park bench, was a billionaire? Like actual billionaire? "I just wanted to say thank you, properly," he said, interrupting my internal meltdown. "If you're free sometime, I'd love to take you out to dinner. Just dinner, nothing more." My brain was screaming no, but my heart said why not? Something in his voice felt genuine, not forced, not creepy, just real. I nodded, still dazed. "Okay, sure." He smiled again, thanked me, and walked out as casually as he walked in. The bell chimed again. The door shut behind him. I stared at the card in my hand like it was made of fire. And just like that, the man I saved became the man I couldn't stop thinking about. I couldn't sleep that night. That business card sat on my nightstand like it was glowing in the dark. I must have picked it up and put it down 100 times. I Googled his name, cautiously at first, then with full curiosity. And there it was, article after article, tech magazines, business interviews, lists of the youngest billionaires in the country. Turns out the man I kissed to save was a real-life tech mogul. His company was massive. I recognized some of the apps his team had created. One of them I literally used every day. He had built everything from scratch in his 20s. There were photos of him at conferences, fundraisers, product launches, always in suits, always serious. But none of those photos looked like the guy I met in the park. The man I saw collapse looked fragile, lost, human, not like some untouchable millionaire with private jets and security guards. That's what confused me the most. Why was he alone that day? No assistant? No bodyguard? Why didn't anyone recognize him before? And more importantly, why did he come looking for me? He could have sent someone else, a driver, a lawyer, a thank you card in the mail. But he came himself, stood in front of me, spoke like a regular person. The next day, he texted. Yes, he had my number. Turns out it was listed on the shop's website for orders. He simply said, "Still on for dinner tonight?" Part of me wanted to ignore it. The logical, cautious, maybe a little suspicious part. But another part, the one still buzzing from our conversation, typed back, "Sure. What time?" We met at a little Mediterranean spot downtown. Not a luxury five-star place. Not showy at all. Just warm lighting, soft music, and food that smelled amazing. When he sat down across from me, he looked tired. Not in a bad way. Just real. He told me everything. How he'd been working nonstop for years. No breaks, no vacations, barely sleeping. The day he collapsed, he'd skipped 2 meals and had been dealing with back-to-back stress meetings. It triggered a panic attack that spiraled into something worse. He said if I hadn't been there, he probably wouldn't have made it. I sat there, listening, completely quiet. He wasn't just rich. He was lonely, worn out, and I could tell he wasn't used to people seeing him weak, vulnerable. "I know this is weird," he said, looking down at his hands, "but I don't think it's a coincidence that you were there." I didn't know what to say to that because, honestly, I had started wondering the same thing. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, about books, food, family. He laughed at one of my dumb jokes, and for a moment, he looked younger, happier. That dinner didn't feel like a date with a billionaire. It felt like a beginning. And deep inside, I knew something had shifted. I didn't just save his life. He was starting to change mine, too. After that first dinner, something changed, not just in him, but in me too. I started seeing life a little differently. My days used to feel like a loop: work, eat, sleep, repeat. But now there was this presence in the background, a new rhythm slowly weaving into my routine. He didn't bombard me with texts or grand gestures. He was respectful, patient, careful not to overwhelm me. But he made it known he wanted to keep seeing me, and truthfully, I wanted that too. We kept it simple: coffee runs, walks in quiet parks, small restaurants tucked away in corners of the city. He wasn't flashy like I expected. No paparazzi, no over-the-top displays. He actually hated all that. One afternoon, we sat on a bench watching ducks float across a pond. He told me about growing up in a small apartment with his mom, how they'd struggled, how even now he sometimes still felt like the broke kid from the block, not the man running multi-million-dollar meetings. I remember looking at him and realizing something important. He didn't want someone to be impressed by his wealth. He wanted someone to see him. And weirdly enough, I already had. I'd seen him in his most vulnerable state, when he wasn't anyone's CEO, just a man barely holding on. It made things feel equal, balanced. One evening, after closing at work, he waited outside just to walk me home, not in a romantic movie kind of way, just standing there in a hoodie, sipping tea, like any normal guy. "You okay?" I asked, surprised. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "Just didn't want you walking alone tonight." That moment, it melted me, not because it was some huge declaration of love, but because it was thoughtful, quiet, gentle. He told me how, since the collapse, he had started therapy, cut back on work, stopped answering emails past 8 p.m. He said meeting me reminded him that life isn't just about building empires. It's about the small, quiet moments you almost forget to live. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect to feel this close to someone so fast. But it didn't feel rushed. It felt earned, grown from something real. He never once made me feel like I didn't belong in his world. He listened when I talked, remembered small details, like how I take my coffee, or that I still rewatch my favorite childhood cartoons when I'm sad. There were moments I'd catch myself smiling for no reason, just thinking about him, and that scared me a little, because falling for someone who lives in a different world than you, that's a risk. But still, I kept showing up. So did he. And with each passing day, that connection grew. It wasn't built on fairy tales or money or fantasy. It was built on something rare these days: presence, honesty, consistency, and maybe the smallest bit of fate. Everything was going well, like really well. I started looking forward to his messages, to our walks, our random phone calls where we'd talk about everything from favorite foods to childhood regrets. It felt safe, unexpectedly real. But of course, life doesn't let you stay in that bubble for long. It started small, a blog post, probably written by someone who had too much time and not enough facts. They connected the dots between the news story of the mystery woman who saved a man in the park and a few blurry photos of me walking beside him a week later. Then it spread. Fast. Before I knew it, strangers were tagging me in posts I didn't ask for. People at work started whispering. Even customers were staring longer than usual. One afternoon, someone actually asked if I was that girl dating the tech billionaire. I wanted to sink into the floor. Some people thought the story was sweet, like something out of a movie. Others, not so kind. I read comments that made my stomach twist. She probably did it for fame. Typical gold digger move. She saved him just to get close. Bet she planned it. One person even called me a good actress. They made it sound like I had some master plan, like I saw a billionaire collapse and thought, perfect opportunity to kiss my way into luxury. I was angry, then embarrassed, then honestly, just hurt. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want attention. I never even told anyone about that day, not even my coworkers. I had tried so hard to stay quiet, invisible. The pressure started to get to me. I began second guessing everything. Should I stop seeing him? Should I go back to hiding? Was I ruining his life just by being part of it? I told him all of this one night. I didn't hold back. I was ready to walk away if that's what would protect us both. But instead of pulling away, he reached across the table, gently took my hand, and said something I still remember word for word. Let them talk. I know who you are. That's enough for me. It wasn't a big romantic speech. It wasn't loud or showy, just calm, steady, true. And in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't afraid of the noise, so maybe I didn't have to be either. We decided to keep things even more private after that. No posts, no photos, just quiet time together. We stopped caring about who had opinions, let them speculate. Because deep down, we both knew the truth. I didn't save him for the headlines. He didn't fall for me because of sympathy. What we had was real, quiet, imperfect, and stronger than any rumor. And sometimes that's all that matters. A few weeks later, he invited me to a charity event. At first, I hesitated. Crowds weren't really my thing, especially now that strangers on the internet had opinions about my life. But he looked at me with that calm, steady gaze and said, "You don't have to dress up or play a part. Just be there. That's all I want." So I said yes. The event was elegant but surprisingly low-key. No red carpets or flashing cameras, just people gathered for a good cause, raising money for community health clinics in underfunded neighborhoods. It was a cause close to his heart. I didn't know until that night, but he'd been donating quietly for years. Halfway through the evening, he got up to speak. I thought he was just going to thank the guests, maybe share a few numbers and sit back down. But then he started talking about me. He told the story of what happened in the park, but from his side. He talked about how he'd collapsed, how scared he was, how everything went black, and then how he woke up to someone breathing life back into him. Someone who didn't ask for credit, who didn't even stick around to take a bow. And then he said, "That moment reminded me what kindness really is." And tonight, in her honor, we're launching a new program to bring first aid training to local communities so more lives can be saved, just like mine was. He didn't propose. He didn't put me in a spotlight. He gave me something better: respect, honor, purpose. And in that moment, standing in the back of the room, I realized something. This wasn't about luck anymore. It was about something real, something we were building together, one step at a time. After that night, something inside me shifted, not just because of the speech or the applause, or even the fact that a program was being launched in my name, which honestly still feels surreal to say out loud. It was something deeper than all of that. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not for what I looked like, not for who I was dating, not for what I did in a single moment, but for the heart behind it all. He saw that. He always had. Things didn't magically turn into a fairy tale after that. There were still challenges. Life didn't stop being messy. We both had pasts, boundaries, fears. We took it slow, real slow, no moving in together, no big declarations on social media, just quiet, steady presence in each other's lives. I still had my job. He still had his empire. But somehow, we made space for each other in between all that noise. And that's the part I want people to understand. This story, it isn't about a billionaire falling for a girl who saved him. It's not about wealth or status or some lucky twist of fate. It's about moments, raw, unpredictable moments that test your heart and remind you of what really matters. That kiss in the park, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't magical. It was human. A moment of fear, instinct, and compassion. But it led to something beautiful. I don't know what the future holds for us. Maybe we'll stay together forever. Maybe we'll grow into different people and walk different paths. Life's unpredictable like that. But I do know this: I wouldn't change any of it. Not the embarrassment, not the rumors, not even the fear. Because every part of this journey taught me something about who I am and who I want to be. And it all started with a stranger, a man I didn't know, a moment I didn't plan, and a kiss I never expected to give. That ended up saving more than just one life. It gave me mine back too, in a way I never saw coming. Sometimes I think back to that day in the park. If I'd walked a different route, if I'd stopped for coffee, if I'd been just a few minutes later, would he have survived? Would we have ever met? It's strange how one moment, one choice can split your life into a before and an after. I didn't save him because I thought it would lead to anything. I didn't do it because I hoped to gain something. I just saw someone in need, and I couldn't ignore it. That's what I want people to remember about this story. It didn't begin with romance. It didn't begin with money. It began with a decision to act when no one else did. That kiss, to me, wasn't a love story. It was a lifeline. Not just for him, for me too. Because in helping him, I found something in myself: strength, courage, and a reminder that the smallest acts can create the biggest waves. Today, our lives are still unfolding. He's still him, calm, brilliant, sometimes a little stubborn. And I'm still me, learning, growing, figuring things out one step at a time. We haven't rushed into anything. We're just real. And that's more than enough. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: don't underestimate your kindness. Don't wait for a perfect moment to do the right thing. And don't ever assume that one small act can't change a life, because sometimes it changes too. If you believe in unexpected miracles, share this story. And remember, sometimes a simple act of kindness can lead to something greater than you ever imagined. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. You never know what story might change a life, maybe even yours.